We're continuing on with chapter 1. I apologize. Had some technical difficulties and I got cut off. So as we were discussing, we were on the slide about why to study sports in society, and I was wrapping up with the idea that family, economy, media, politics, education, and religion are going to be in all the spheres, or sports is going to be in all of those spheres. So go ahead to the next slide. So just a second ago, I told you that we were going to be discussing ideologies, and that will be the thing that we will talk about all semester, or all 6 weeks, okay? So here's the definition of what ideologies are. They're integrated ideas and beliefs. Those are the two main words you really need to understand about ideologies, ideas and beliefs that people use in a culture to give meaning and sense of what is occurring within their social worlds. So, go ahead to click to the next one. Ideology is a shared interpretive framework that people use to make sense of themselves and evaluate themselves and the world around them. There are going to be several ideologies that we will explore throughout the entire semester. The first one is the dominant ideology. Before I get into all of these, it is really critical that you have a clear understanding of each of these ideologies. So if there's one thing that I think you really need to sit down and read through and make sure that you know them, it would be these ideologies, because we're going to be using them almost in every single chapter. So the first ideology, as I was about to state, is dominant ideology. So that represents the perspectives and these ideas that favor people who have power and influence. So dominant ideologies, as we talked about earlier, are people that are in power. So it serves them well. It serves what they like to do and their interest. The next ideology is gender ideology. And, gender ideology, they have the definition here again. It's the integrated ideas and beliefs that are widely used to define masculinity and femininity, okay? Identify people as male or female. So gender ideology really kind of states like you're either a male or you're a female, and here's your role within society. It's based on, as it says here, as a basis for determining natural and moral related to gender. Dominant gender ideologies, prevailing notions of common sense. This is male, this is female within a group society. You're going to see that is challenged. And we're going to, a lot of times I'm going to be asking you why. Why do we think this way? And your answer is going to be, well, because that's how it is. Well, there has to be a reason behind it. I really want you guys to question, why do we do this? Why are we put into these, these categories? Why? Just because? Well, that's not a good enough reason. So gender will be an area that we will really tackle in almost every single chapter. The next ideology is race ideology. So again, you're going to see the two key words again, ideas and beliefs that are widely used to classify humans into categories based on what they look like. The technical definition talks about biological and how they relate to intelligence, temperance, and physical abilities. So as a society, we classify humans in these areas, intelligence, their physical abilities, any attributes. We classify individuals based on what they look like, what color their skin is. Race ideologies, which will be interesting to you, they vary around the world, but they are super powerful. And as you know, if you watch the news in any capacity, there is a lot of stuff going on, with race. And, unfortunately, our society, it feels like we're almost taking steps backwards. And that's really sad. And so we're going to explore, these topics in relation to sport. Go ahead to the next slide. So social class ideology, again, ideas and beliefs that put people into categories based on economic success, failures, money they make, the jobs that they have. That's what social class ideology is going to be. As we will go through, we'll kind of go through this idea of the American dream, which all of you should have an idea. The American dream is if you work hard, you will get where you want to be. That's not always the case, and that is something that we're going to discuss. There are some barriers and limitations to that mindset that as long as you work hard, you can get where you want to be. And, again, regardless of your political views or things like that, there are some real barriers for individuals to progress in our society. Competitive sports provide vocabulary and stories that reaffirm and dominate social class ideologies within the United States, which we'll discuss. Ableist ideologies are ideas and beliefs, again, that really use to categorize individuals with physical or intellectual, or that are intellectually disabled. It's our way of justifying how we treat them and how we give them, what we give them and what we don't give them access to. Ableist ideology is grounded on ableism. That is attitudes, actions, policies based on the belief that people classified as physical or intellectually disabled are incapable of doing things. And again, this will be, I think, really eye-opening for a lot of you. At least it was for me when, as I continue to go through this, how little access that these individuals have to what, as the slide says, normal people get access to. Go ahead to the next slide. So characteristics of ideologies, people are usually unaware of their own ideologies because they simply take them for granted. So that's what I was saying earlier, like you just say, well, it is what it is. That's just because. But people spot the ideologies of others and quickly. They emerge in our social world. People don't want them to change. They're complex and sometimes inconsistent. So it's not a simple answer. And I think you're going to see that throughout this next 6 weeks. It's not simple in, how we classify individuals. They change as power relationships change in society as well. So depending on who's in power really depends on how these ideologies are viewed within our society. Go ahead to the next slide. So sports are integrated into the major spheres, which we've already discussed. You can go to the next slide. Little cartoon character here. Families and family schedules often are shaped around, your involvement in sports and activities. I want to ask you right now to think, as you were growing up, whether it was you, a sibling, how did sports play a factor? Did you ever miss dinners? Did you, was the weekend, did you take trips and it was based around a sporting event? Hey, we're going to go do this, but it's because there's a soccer tournament or there's a baseball tournament. There's just some pictures here of like a couple, just married, so they're running together, and then we have another one who's getting, has his golfs there. Like, how long will this take? I need to head to the golf course. So just some funny kind of cartoons there. So that's the last slide of chapter 1. This is probably, the most dry chapter because we had to get through some of these concepts, and I wanted to make sure you had an understanding. But again, let me reiterate, please know the ideologies. Have a clear understanding of what each means. Read through the chapter thoroughly so that you know what those are, so that when we just begin to discuss them over the coming weeks, this won't be confusing to you at all. Okay, so that was chapter 1. If you have any questions, please let me know.